There's a phrase that's not my favorite phrase when it comes to doctors and patients. And that phrase is doctor-patient relationship. It's not that I don't think the doctor-patient relationship is important. I think the doctor-patient relationship is extremely important. But I do think the meaning behind that term has changed. The doctor-patient relationship these days relates more to confidentiality than it does to an actual relationship. And as medicine has evolved, I think that relationship has kind of been eroded, especially for the more routine issues like colds and earaches. And that's somewhat understandable, but I think that's even extended to the more complex issues. And in all honesty, there's just less time to establish the doctor-patient relationship that we want. The good news is, I think that relationship is more in your control, the patient's control, than we realize. And so today we're going to talk about how we establish that doctor-patient relationship and how we can use that relationship to improve our experiences and improve our outcomes. Now, there's no doubt that the doctor-patient relationship can be difficult to establish. There's time constraints, there's busy schedules, not to mention more patients. And going to the doctor these days is kind of like going to the mechanic. Fix the problem and move along. And I can definitely admit I have been guilty of this as both the doctor and the patient, because patients are busy too, and there's less time available. And some would question whether there's even anything wrong with that. We're always hearing about how patients get in to see the doctor they want to see, or the wait to see the doctor is too long. But there's no doubt that patients want a strong relationship with their doctor. I know that they want and they need a good relationship with their doctor. Now, the way I know that patients want a relationship with their doctor is the number one question that I get in the office, without a doubt, is, how do you say your name? It's not how many procedures have you done. It's not how long will this take. It's not what will my recovery be like. It's how do you say your name? And that's understandable. One, because that's a tough name and there's a lot of I's and K's and C's. But it's also understandable and makes sense because in order to know someone else, the first thing you want to know is their name. If you want to know about them, you start by learning their name. And so when a patient asks me that question, it's a sign to me that they want to get to know more about me because they want to know that the patient, the person who's caring for them, is actually going to care about them. They want to initiate that relationship. So patients want it. And patients need it. And the way that I realized that they need it was a recent conversation I had with my wife. We were talking about going to the doctor, and I said, are you ever uncomfortable going to see your physician? And she said, no, not really. One of the doctors I see is actually a personal friend, and so when I go into the office, it's not really uncomfortable for me at all. And I said, okay, that makes sense. That's a unique situation. And she had an appointment a week or so later, and when she came home, I just asked her how it was, and she said, I was really uncomfortable. Something came up. I wasn't expecting it. I didn't know what to say or how to say it, so I didn't say it, and I just got through the appointment and got home. And the moral of the story for me is a doctor-patient relationship is very different than a friendship because you might need to tell your doctor something that you don't want to tell your friend, okay? And so patients want and need this. So how do you get there? How do you develop that relationship when your doctor has 25 other patients to see today and you've got 25 other places to be today? The process starts like this. Before I even go into the exam room, before the patient can even ask my name, I'm looking at their chart. I get a little bit of background on what's going on with their vision. I'm mostly thinking about the patient. What are they like? Are they happy? Are they sad? Do they even really want to be here? Now, if I'm running behind, which never happens, then I know that they're not going to be thrilled already. And I always try and put on a big smile when I go into the room. And when I get in that room, I have a choice. I can choose to treat the eye, which is what I am medically trained to do, kind of like a mechanic, or I can treat the patient, which requires way more experience than you could ever get in medical school. And that choice, that decision, isn't entirely up to me. The patient plays a large role in how this plays out. Now, on the other side of the door is the patient. And that's you or your mother or your brother or your sister. And that patient, at least in my room, is having trouble with their vision. They've been probably to one and maybe two more doctors before they come and see me. And they've exhausted all of the treatment options available to them thus far. So that's not really a fun place to be. That is a very vulnerable place to be. So I can walk in the door with a big smile on, but the patient knows that's code. When I ask them how they're doing, they know that's code for we're going to talk about problems. And nobody wants to talk about their problems. They're going to be poked and prodded. We're going to be shining a lot of light in their eyes. We're going to be asking them a million questions. It might as well be an interrogation. Let me just tie your hands and your feet to the chair. We'll make it more realistic. You sit there, you tell me everything, and in the end, when we're done, we're going to come up with a plan that may very well include surgery on your eye. Okay? So to be a little nervous or out of sorts, uncomfortable is an understatement. Okay? The patient is fearful and not knowing what's coming up next. But I can usually figure out what's going on. And usually it's something like, I'm having trouble driving, I can't see to read, or I can't see the golf ball anymore. To which I usually reply, it's hard to see the golf ball when you hit it on the other fairway. Okay? It doesn't go over that well in the exam room. But anyway, I can get the gist of what's going on with the patient. And so, really, what's wrong with that? I know you. You're the one with the eye problem. And you know me. You can say my name at least for the next 30 seconds. So, let's get the show on the road. We're perfectly acquainted. And that's the doctor-patient relationship all too often. Okay? But to say that there is a boundary between myself and the patient at this point is an understatement. From my side, I'm trying to help. I'm trying to get as much information as I can to get this person where they need to be to fix this patient's vision. But from the patient's side, I'm one step above a necessary evil, not to be given any more information than is essential to get the job done. And we can't really change our roles in this relationship. One of us has to be the doctor. One of us has to be the patient. And we can only partially bridge the knowledge gap. But the emotion that we bring is as large a boundary as anything else. And we can fix that. And when I say we can fix it, I mean you, the patient, can fix it. Because how you feel as the patient is really everything. And we have already established that you probably don't feel great. You can't see. We're poking, we're prodding, we're shining lights in your eyes. So yeah, you are not feeling great. You're feeling vulnerable, you're feeling apprehensive. You don't have any control. You can't control the doctors or the nurses. You can't control the outcome. All this poking and prodding, we kind of have to do it to figure out what's going on. And so for the patient, the fear is kind of driving everything. The uncertainty is driving everything. There is the fear of not regaining vision. There is the fear of losing vision. There's the fear of having a complication. There's just the fear of someone cutting their eye. Okay? Those are all very objective. They're all very understandable anytime somebody's undergoing surgery. But it's more than that. It's really so much more than that, because when you said you couldn't see, Joe, what you meant was you couldn't see to drive, and you're a truck driver. You drive for a living. It's the only thing you've ever known. It's how you support your family, and you can't see well enough to do it anymore. And oh, by the way, your CDL license is coming up for renewal next month, and if you don't pass, you're going to lose your job, probably your house, and who knows what next. Or maybe you're Sally, an accountant, with 2 kids in college and 1 in high school. And you really can't tell the difference between 3s and 8s anymore on the page. You've already made a few accounting mistakes in last year's taxes, and you can't really afford to make any more. Or maybe you're Helen, the 80-year-old spouse of your 85-year-old husband who has Alzheimer's, and you're his sole caregiver. You take him to all his appointments, except you really can't see well enough to get around anymore. And if you can't get him around, then he's going to be in a nursing home. And you promised him he would never have to go into a nursing home. Beyond this fear of losing your vision is the fear of not being the person that you need to be for yourself, for your loved ones, the fear of not being the only person that you have ever known. That's the vulnerability. That is the emotion behind the door that I am standing in front of. And that's what you can control as the patient. And the way you control that is to give it, at least some of it, to me, your doctor. That's what I'm here for. That's what you need to tell me. That's what I want to hear. Why does it even matter? Well, it matters because when you can express as a patient on an emotional level what's going on for you in your life, then I can feel it. I become empathetic towards you as a patient in a way that is distinctly unique from every other patient. We're now working together on a goal that is important to you. When you say, I can't see to drive, and I say we can fix that, then that's me being a mechanic. Okay? But when you say, I can't see to drive, and I'm afraid I'm going to lose my house, or I'm afraid I'm not going to be able to take care of my husband or play golf with my kids, then I can feel that. It's tangible. I have a job, I have a wife, I have children. They are all very important to me. So I understand it. And so then my response of, don't worry, Joe, we are going to help fix your vision so that you're not going to lose your house. You're not going to lose your job. You're going to be able to take care of your husband, play golf with your kids, whatever it might be. It's more than just words. There's a discussion. There's emotion behind it. And that emotion connects us. I can say, okay, let's make this our goal so that no matter what happens, our goal is to get you to the place you need to be the person that you need to be. That's what's important. That's what the patients need to hear. And, it's your ability to express your emotion and my sense of empathy that put us there, okay? Everyone has these fears. It's there on some level for every single patient. Some are able to recognize it. Other people bury it. But if you are able to verbalize what's going on for you, it's more than worth it. It puts you and your doctor on the same page. It gives you a common goal. You now have a partner to go through this experience with, and that's the doctor-patient relationship, okay? And I don't even think it takes that much time to express what you're feeling, okay? It's not a therapy session. I just want to know what's going on in your life. But it takes some guts. And I'm asking you to express for you not only what's going on with you physically, but emotionally. But it's worth putting in the time to figure that out, okay? Because when we're on the same page, we're working together, you feel understood as a patient, when you feel listened to as a patient, because remember, how you feel as a patient is everything. So when you feel understood and when you feel listened to, then that makes for an overall better experience. And then when you have an overall better experience, then your outlook is better. You've got a positive outlook. And hands down, the patients that do the best have a positive outlook. That happens in my office. It happens in the research. It is a fact. So sometimes it's uncanny. The patients, you don't expect patients to do as well as they do. They come in with a smile on their face. They're doing great because they were positive from the very beginning. So if you can get there, it makes a huge difference. But in medicine and in life, things don't always go well, okay? It's not always a positive outcome. You might have a negative outcome. You could have a bad outcome. But if you have that relationship with your doctor, then you will be able to handle it that much better. Because you'll know the person who was working with you had the same goal, you were both working towards the same end point, and you won't focus as much on the outcome that now is a little hurdle. You're going to focus on the goal, because the goal is still the same. If things don't go well, the patient's goal is still the same, to get you to be the person things that you need to do to be the person you need to be. So even if things don't go as planned, you're able to handle better and focus on the goal. The last thing, the reason I think this is important as well, is that it's important for your doctor, because the reason that I do what I do every day is to hear from the patients about what they can do now that we've helped them. And that's not just me, that's every physician. So when a patient comes in telling me what they can do now that they can see how it's changed their life, that's one of the reasons I get out of bed in the morning. So it leads to a better, more positive outcome. You can handle the negative outcomes better. Your doctor's on the same page with you. You've got a common goal. You're all working towards the same thing if you can express what's going on for you. So if you want your doctor to care about you, then tell your doctor about you with all of the emotion that's going on, what you're worried about, what your fears are, what your vulnerability is. It'll get you on the same page. You'll develop that relationship. The whole experience will be tremendously better. And that's what you wanted in the first place. That's the reason you asked me my name. Thank you.